Hello everyone, welcome to my commentary and gameplay guide for Wanted Dead, the new scourge of the internet, at least according to IGN and other mainstream game reviewers. And if you haven't seen the previous video on this channel where I reviewed Wanted Dead, and am pretty much the only positive review of the game, or as some people on Discord said, the most full-throated defense of the game, definitely check that review out. And it's kind of a funny position for me to be in because typically, I do not like mainstream games, bigger games that much, and I am one to be more critical than most people, especially IGN, so it is a funny sort of reverse situation where IGN tends to give games like Bayonetta 3 a 9 out of 10, Sifu a 9 out of 10. I thought those were both okay games. Bayo 3 I think was even worse than Sifu, and I would have rated them much more around the sort of 7 out of 10 sort of range. But then the other direction, IGN though, is like, okay, well, to kind of compensate for us giving these inflated scores to all these other games, every now and again we need to pile drive a game that is acceptable to pile drive. And today, Wanted Dead is that game that it is acceptable to pile drive, and so it has been getting a very hard time since its release. And one thing I wanted to do with this video is not just to talk about, oh yeah, I like the game, I think it's cool, I think it's fun, there's a lot of potential here that people aren't recognizing. I mean, that's fun to do as a reviewer, but every now and again I feel like you need to show the people. Rather than just tell the people, you need to show the people. Because I think a lot of reviewers, they talk the talk, but can they walk the walk? And so what we're looking at here is my Japanese hard mode new game plus clear. This is about my 7th clear of the game. Originally, I was going to do a no death run, so all the way through without dying. And I had a few attempts there that got pretty deep. The deepest I got was midway through stage 4. Then I died to kind of a bullshit death. And I realized, okay, I literally, even if I want to continue down this path, I literally do not have the time in my schedule to continue to play Wanted Dead for 5 more days or whatever it would have taken. So instead what I'm showing here are the routes I developed for my no death clear, and it's a segmented run, a good old classic segmented run that people don't tend to label or talk about. This is segmented, so for the majority of the game I actually don't die all that much, but when I hit the later stages I'll point them out. I do have some segments that I chop together, that way we get, you know, an efficient commentary experience. But so I wanted to go through some of the feedback I got on that video that I think is interesting to discuss in this video, especially as we're going through and I'm showing off some of the counterpoints to this feedback. One person said, okay, Mark, I get your whole point about the guard canceling techniques and all the other techniques of the game, and how if you actually learn the game and understand it, a lot of the criticisms IGN put out there are invalid. I get that. I even grant you that. This is a nice commenter. It just is an interesting sentiment that I saw a lot. But isn't it the responsibility of the developer to communicate this stuff to the player? I think even Boghog kind of thought this as well. And I have a lot of respect for his views on gaming as well. And he said, hey, well, isn't it? I think he did. I don't know. Sorry, Boghog, if that's not what you said. But a lot of people have been saying this in the comment section of, well, we get what you're saying about how there's a lot of potential to the game, and there's a lot of techniques of the game that once you study it and play it a bit, you can understand. But isn't it the role of the developer to make sure that these mechanics and aspects of the gameplay are 100% clear to the player from the beginning without any shadow of a doubt? That way, no one can get mixed up and accidentally get the wrong idea of a game. And that sounds really good in principle, and it sounds really good on paper. Like if I was to say, oh yeah, so it's the developer's fault, they should have communicated guard cancel more clearly in the mechanics, they should have communicated it in a tutorial and had little prompts and things to teach you that technique and other techniques of the game. Guard cancel isn't the only advanced technique of the game. That sounds good on paper, but the reality is very few games actually do this, like good games. Not shallow, lame mainstream games. Shallow, lame mainstream games do actually do this because there's not much to them, so they can literally tutorialize everything for you and then lock out things that they find too interesting or too risky to the intended design or whatever, right? The problem with, though, The problem I'm getting at, though, is with all really good action and arcade games and fighting games and so forth, a tutorial can only take you so far. And in fact, the developer's own knowledge of their own game can only take them so far. Because let's be honest here, how many great action games and arcade games and fighting games that were made and they're perfectly balanced, and the developer knew every technique of the game. The developer knew exactly what could happen at all times. There's nothing going against anything intended. Therefore, it is only the job of the reviewer to be like a little show and tell for the developer. And if the developer doesn't tell the gameplay or the player exactly everything about the game, then then it's fair to say it's a bad game, right? The problem with this whole notion is that this does not apply to any famous action game, any famous fighting game, none of it. What normally happens with action games and fighting games is that the game journalists, like with this game, don't really know how to play the game well, don't know how the advanced mechanics work. They don't really play it beyond the surface level. But typically, what they will at least do is pay lip service to the possibility that there's deeper gameplay, and they'll say kind of vague things about the gameplay, but at least they're like Bayonetta is a good example of that. How many game journalists are doing free, whatever it's called, free step cancel, free dodge cancels, or whatever that it is, and how many of these game journalists are doing all these advanced techniques? Same thing with Devil May Cry. You think when Devil May Cry 3 or 1 came out, wherever it was first introduced, enemy step, do you think game journalists were sitting there and doing enemy steps on people, or were fully doing the crazy combos and all that? No, they weren't. But because of the reputation of Capcom, because the reputation of Devil May Cry and the reputation of these different companies, the game journalists just sort of took it on face value. Oh yeah, the gameplay's good and it's deep, I just don't understand it. Same thing with fighting games, right? Like, how many reviews of fighting games are reviewers talking, like mainstream reviewers talking about, well, I think the changes to the parry system here are going to be complicated because that's going to open up some counterplay, like in Soul Calibur 2, like all the crazy parry and guard canceling mechanics in that game. Did any of that was all patched out in Soul Calibur 3, was that ever reviewed in any mainstream review? No, not at all. They're just looking at the surface elements of the game, and that's as far as they go. But what function is IGN and all these reviewers actually bringing to the table? If they can't snoop out anything and they just rely on the tutorial, they're basically just entry level, one step away from a salesman. Like, whatever the dev tells, they're at the mercy of what the developer tells them, is what I'm getting at here. So if the developer tells them, oh no, the combat's really deep and interesting and rich, like Bayonetta 3 with its summoning system, so deep and interesting, then the reviewers just parrot that and say, oh, Bayonetta 3, the combat's so deep and interesting because you can do these summons, without really investigating it themselves and realizing, oh wait, now it's so streamlined because all you do in the game now, unlike Bayonetta 1, which I think is a much better game, is just summon all day long. Just summoning is so good, and the gameplay is all centralized to summoning so much that it just kind of takes over the whole combat system. But that's never really commented on. It was commented on in my review, but no other reviewer that I saw commented on this, and they just kind of, again, oh, it's deeper because there's more crap. And that's something that I need to make a video on in more depth at some point, talking about breadth versus depth in gameplay and game design. So like Bayonetta 3 versus Wanted Dead. One of the complaints of Wanted Dead was you just have your sword, so the gameplay is shallow. Despite the fact that you can do all these interesting attacks with the sword once you understand the state transitions and everything. Now, Bayonetta definitely has more moves and everything, and I guess you could argue that it is a deeper game. Bayonetta 3 I'm talking specifically about. But the fact that Bayonetta 3 has like 50 weapons or whatever and 5,000 moves, that doesn't necessarily make it a better game. Same thing with Tekken versus Virtua Fighter, right? Like Tekken 7 has way more moves than Virtua Fighter does, but I think you'd be insane to try and say that Tekken's a deeper game than Virtua Fighter. It's just because in Virtua Fighter you have all these different attacks and everything, but they're all pretty damn valid, and they all have a lot of really useful applications within your game plan, and they develop your play style. Whereas in Tekken, now I like Tekken, but one thing about Tekken is usually you have like 6 or 7 good moves and you just use those, and then you ignore 90% of your move list. So yes, on paper Tekken has way more depth because it has a billion moves, but functionally most of those moves are completely useless and just filler. So that's always something to keep in mind when you're looking at action games, is you have to really ask yourself, okay, there's a lot of on paper surface elements to this, but how much do these moves actually matter? In the case of Wanted Dead, every attack that Stone has, literally every attack that she has, is useful. At first, I thought the charged attack was useless, but oh no. In later stages, in the Hall of Death, as I call it, that charged attack and on the ninjas is hella good, especially when you combined it with the incendiary grenade. Every move she has in the game is good. I can't think of one that isn't good, and I'm going to try and point that out because one of my goals in this playthrough here, now I'll get to the actual instruction on how to play. One of my goals in this playthrough here was to show off the range of her skill set. Oh, check this out. So you get him on the incendiary, right? And he gets kind of stuck on it. And then you light him up. But watch this. This is the move I want to show you. One, I'm going to do a sick gun guard cancel in here. So I'm going to do 3-hit string. And then I'm going to light him up in the face. Let's wait for it. 1, 2, 3 on the stab. Nope. Okay, not yet. He blocked it. On the stab, that's when you cancel and you get massive. Here it comes. You get hedge, and you can just get so many headshots. You get massive damage if you cancel on that 3rd hit. Now you can cancel on any hit into the gun and pull out the gun, but I think the 3rd hit is best, and it makes sense because the way the frame data works is that first hit gives you a good amount of hit advantage on hit. So you can do it after the first hit, but if you think about it, when you're continuing your combo, the 4th hit of the string, that's your big kind of roundhouse type hit, and it's a very slow startup. And so in order to make that move combo, the 3rd hit of the string, the stab, needs to have a massive assload of hit stun on it, right? But the fun part about it is that it has a very swift cancel. So you can get incredible iframes off of that stab. And then on top of that, it also just gives you enough time to kind of set it up clearly, because the problem with off the first strike, I think I do it a few times in the run, but the problem with guard into gun cancel off the first strike is you just got to have swift hands. You got to have the hands of Billy the Kid or something to pull that off, because just that window is so tight. But because of the string on the 3 hits, you get much more time to kind of set it up, and you get a ton of iframes. So you'll see most of the time when I do a gun cancel, it's off the stab. Though you can do it off of any attack. It's just how advantageous is it iframe-wise. So the first boss fight here, this is probably my least favorite boss fight of the game for 2 reasons. One is that it is incredibly jank. Now, I don't think this game is nearly as jank as everyone says it is. In fact, when I was playing, I ran into very few glitches and problems, to be honest. Maybe it's been patched since release too. Like, it never crashed. I never really found myself in game-breaking glitches or anything. And also maybe I'm a little bit more tolerant because I do play PS2 era action games, and like Red Dead for Revolver, Max Payne, Dead to Rights, those games have some pretty legendary glitchy moments. But overall, I don't think the game is nearly as glitchy as, people initially say it was, at least not at this point. But one place where that critique does hold up is on this mother effing tank fight. Because this tank has all kinds of insane glitches that can occur. Like, for example, the run before this, I'm going, and you see there's that sort of hole in the wall over there. Well, it turns out if you accidentally shepherd the tank into that hole, it can crawl back behind the hole and then get stuck inside the wall and be undamageable behind the wall. You can't get to it, but it can still fire out at you through the wall. And it's basically a forced reset because you can't damage the tank. It can damage you, and the fight will just go on forever, right? You can't damage it. And I don't think there's boss timeouts. I didn't try that, but I'm assuming there's not boss timeouts. So it's a soft lock, you know, so you have to force reset. That only happened to me once in my 7 playthroughs, but it did happen 1 out of 7 times, so beware of that. But the second reason why I dislike this fight is it's actually surprisingly like one of the harder boss fights in the game. And it's not because it's on paper super challenging. You're basically just running around, avoiding the tank, hitting him with the grenade launcher. But these mother effing grenade guys are relentless on the second phase, and they will one-shot you on Japan hard mode. So I think this was kind of more balanced for normal mode, but if you're on Japan hard mode, it will just one-shot you, and it's like instant death. And these guys are all over the place, and they can fire from crazy ranges. So there's been times where I've been playing, and I'll literally get to this phase where he's disabled, and I'm running to it, and I'll get grenaded and die like an inch away from it before I hit it. I've also been grenaded, you know, just killing it or hitting it with the final shot. So those grenade guys in Japanese hard mode are terrifying. If I were to explain my thoughts on how the game feels now that I've played it for about 30 hours, I would say it feels like a cross between, like a weird cross between Nioh/Sekiro and Metal Slug. Like the way you route the stages and you route the grenades and you route your shot pickups and everything, that reminds me so much of Metal Slug, how you route all that stuff out, and how even kind of like the pacing of the game reminds me of Metal Slug. But then the actual melee combat and stuff feels so much like a cross between Nioh and Sekiro, which makes sense because Nioh's a Team Ninja game, and Sekiro, I heard someone said in the comment section that someone who worked on Sekiro actually worked on this game as well in some kind of position. So I could also see that being a crossover point. And isn't it weird, you know, Sekiro is considered like one of the best Dark Souls type games. Its combat's incredible and all that. But a game that I feel like has a lot of similarities, and I actually like Wanted Dead's combat more than Sekiro's, to be honest, is so negatively panned. I do not get it. I honestly don't. And I think this is why game reviewers need to be at least somewhat legit gamers, because this situation to me makes literally no sense. How the game could be getting such bad reviews, I don't even understand it. So let's talk about some techniques and tips now, right? Because I'm trying to be teaching you, rather than fully just reviewing the game, I want to teach you how to play it. So like I said, whenever you finish off a combo, make sure to hit your guard button at the end to get a nice cancel. And it doesn't just matter when you're stringing attacks together on one guy, it also matters when you're fighting people in group, because you want to be able to dispatch enemies quickly. And one thing that players tend to do across like Nioh and Sekiro, and also Wanted Dead, I would assume, is on the actual kill attacks, you forget to guard cancel those. And I'll do that from time to time. I'll forget to guard cancel the kill attack because you'll say, oh, well, I nailed the guard cancel, so I got the kill, so what's it matter? But it matters in terms of crowd control. It matters in terms of just pacing, I think. And especially if you speedrun the game, it really matters at that point. So let's talk about the chainsaw. So when you first play the game in stage 1 and 2, the chainsaw is a fun little item. It's a little bit jank, but it's pretty fun because it's one hit death. Your run speed is reduced. Its range is pretty tiny, and you're not fully invulnerable with it all the time. It's hard to describe, but basically what can happen a lot is as you're bringing up the chainsaw to kill someone, someone else can attack you, and you're like a turtle. There's nothing you can really do about it. And on Japanese hard mode, those attacks can straight up kill you, or those attacks can take most of your health. So like when I was doing my no death runs, I actually did not use the chainsaw. But I thought since I was segmenting this run, I'll take the risk and do it, because you kill enemies faster off with the chainsaw overall. But the trade-off is it's very risky to use because at any point you can kind of get cheap shotted with it, especially in Japanese hard mode, because Japanese hard mode the enemies are more aggressive in groups, where in normal mode they kind of take, it's like a Star Wars movie where they attack you one at a time. Oh yeah, beautiful there, off the 4th hit that time. But these guys are a little bit more tanky, so off the 4th hit's fine. Off the 3rd hit there, perfect. The aim was slow, but the actual execution of it was really good. What's funny is when you cancel from your attacks into gun, you finish the attack with the guard and then you pull out the gun. You have to aim down the sight, by the way. You can't just hip fire. Also, hip fire in this game, don't do it. It sucks. You don't do any damage and you waste your bullets. So always, pretty much always, unless you're like using a shotgun or a grenade launcher or something, pretty much always aim down the sights. And it's faster too to transition to, rather than hip firing. The grenade launcher is a terrifying weapon. It is the scariest weapon in the game, in my opinion, because not only can you get one shot by it, by enemies holding it, but also you can accidentally one-shot yourself with it, and it's not that uncommon. So the way it works is, if you shoot your grenade and it hits anything, it has this huge hitbox on it, like much larger than the actual grenade. And so if you're firing over like a barricade like I am here, or firing from cover, if you don't make sure to really point that grenade way over the cover, it will clip it. And then it'll blow up in your face and kill you or take a lot of damage, and it happens all the time. So the grenade launcher I actually tend to not use in the later stages because it's just way too risky. You might kill yourself with the damn thing. And sometimes it's a little bit outside your control because you're thinking, oh, well, Mark, I'll just aim, right? And that will solve the issue. I'll just be a good boy and aim. Well, it turns out that some random shit can always happen. Oh, that's always a fun one. So there's fun little cancels and techniques that you can do. One of them is if you dash back and then dash forward and slice, and you do it perfectly linearly, you can get this kind of crazy combo with it where you'll just do these upward strikes over and over and over and over. It's really useful on enemies that you jump kick or that you dash kick onto the ground. The enemies in Japanese hard mode have incendiary grenades, and you might be thinking, oh, that's not so bad, I'll just not run into them, right? I'll just dodge them and then walk around the fire. Well, it turns out that the incendiary grenades on Japanese hard mode do an insane amount of damage, and they also are crazy active. And so what can happen is you can be doing a glory kill, a finisher move of a guy, and another guy can throw an incendiary grenade, and you're just stuck doing the move, right? You can't dodge it, you can't do anything about it because you're in the animation of the glory kill. But then it turns out, that even though you have iframes while you're doing the glory kill, you don't have enough iframes to escape the active flames of the grenade. And so you can literally just get killed by random grenade tosses while you're doing a glory kill in certain sections. So in those types of sections, this being one of them, what I always try to do is I try to not glory kill, or if I glory kill, I want to make sure that I'm a good distance away from a grenader. And then on top of that, I also try to weaken a lot of people with machine gun fire and so forth. And just keep these grenade guys, here's a grenade, basically anyone with a gun has the potential to throw a grenade, I think. Keep these grenade guys under control, otherwise you're going to be losing some runs really unfairly. Speaking of routing earlier, one of the routing decisions I highly encourage is, even though it's not a good idea to really use the grenade launcher a bunch in the stage, because like I said, you can accidentally kill yourself off pretty easily with it, especially in more crowded areas where you can be aiming at an enemy and then your teammate runs in front of you as you fire and then takes the damage, and the damage rebounds on you and kills you like Voldemort. Yeah. Another reason why the grenade launcher is scary to use. But anyway, even though it's scary to use, definitely hold on to it so that when you come into this boss fight, it has this early stage here where you have to kill them off before the boss comes out of his little hidey hole. And it turns out, if you look up, he's in the top right corner over there sitting on that bridge. And it turns out if you're in the corner where I'm standing right here, he actually, I don't believe, it hasn't happened for me, he can't hit you over here because like you could see it just there for a second. Because it'll keep catching on the railing as he's trying to fire at you. The center of the stage is the scariest because he can actually reach those points pretty well. But that area up there, he can't, I don't believe he can hit because the railing gets in the way. And I think the other bottom area towards the bridge also, he can't shoot past. So what I'm doing now is I'm running back and forth and I'm just trying to pick off his assistants because you do not want, in Japanese hard mode especially, you do not want to try to fight this guy while his assistants are active. It's going to be a nasty sneak attack on you. So you basically need to run from them, try to grenade them a bit, try and shoot them in the head. There you go. And then it's time to fight the boss. So ever since I found this technique, I haven't died to the boss since finding the technique actually. And the way it works is, okay, so you do the single slice and you do the guard cancels on the single slice. The reason why you do that is because you get more hits done doing that. I believe anyway, I don't have the frame data, but I believe you get more hits done doing that than doing a double strike. And then also if you try the triple strike, he might knock you out of it and you'll miss the cancel. And then you're not in a good position and he'll run away and shoot you and do a ton of damage like he's doing right there. So the way you do it is you do the single strikes over and over and over. And then when he parries you off like that, you do the roll in swing because the roll in swing will stun him every time. Sometimes your swings won't stun him, but the roll in swing does. It always has stun on it. So as long as you hit him with it, you can just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Swing, cancel, swing, cancel, swing, cancel, get parried off, roll, slice in, swing, cancel, rinse and repeat. The second section of the boss fight is actually easier in a way, but much more terrifying. It's easier in that he won't roll away and start machine gunning you, and sometimes that can be kind of tricky to deal with. But it's scarier in that he won't roll away and machine gun you, but he might tiger knee through your attacks if you're not timing them correctly, and he can one-shot you with a combo if you're not careful. Well, not one-shot. He can combo you to death if you're not careful very quickly. So I was really happy with how that went. That was textbook. That was classic. So here we are in stage 3, the casino stage. Visually, this is one of my favorite stages. Gameplay-wise, it's a lot of fun as well, and it is the opposite of tanky. And also, too, has anyone noticed, or I think the IGN review failed to point this out, talking about enemy variety, every stage literally has different enemies. So speaking of enemy variety, I'm not sure why that was a complaint just on paper, because every stage has different enemies introduced. I guess stage 4 and stage 5, there are not as many new enemies introduced, or maybe not any. I'm not quite sure. But I do know that those stages, the enemy choices are very distinctive, and I think the reviewers are just mad about the enemy choices rather than the actual lack of variety, because it's not like you're fighting the same guys over and over. Each stage has different guys with very different properties. For example, in stage 3, these guys, they have very low health. It's like bullet hell mode. They have very low health, but they can output a crap load of damage, and they also swarm you. And since it's Japanese hard mode, more than one will swing at you. So it gets pretty terrifying, to be honest. This is one of the scarier rooms in the entire run overall, because if these guys get on your back, they can combo you to death if they hit you in the back just right. Especially if you're not 100% full in health. So the mission is to stay away from the taser guys, but at the same time, they're going to chase you relentlessly. So you actually start to employ some like devil daggers, circle strafe strategies, which is what I recommend. You see me doing here, which is you run in circles around the stage, and that will keep you safe from getting swarmed. Do not stand in the middle of the stage and let them swarm you, because you're going to get attacked. While you're attacking someone frontwards, someone's going to slice you in the back, and you don't have the ability to block backwards. So you actually have to turn around and block the attack, and usually you don't have time, and then you end up getting comboed very heavily and dying. So in stage 3, there's a lot of sections where you come into kind of open arena type things. And while it's tempting to fight enemies in an open arena, because that seems to make sense on paper, it's actually much better in almost all cases to retreat into a corner or to retreat into like even... Oh shit. This is crazy. It's better, like, see the staircase here? Getting the shotgun and then retreating to the top of the stairs, Tony Montana style, is really good because you have the high ground, and it's also difficult for them to swing on you because of the angle that they're coming up the stairs. And also they can't flank you from the back and everything. So with these sections, I don't know if it was intended, but a very clever trick is to run down there, spawn the enemies, then run back upstairs and pick them off from your vantage as you're doing right now. To try to parry it, it's, in my opinion, very dangerous to attempt that because, one, if you miss the parry, you're normally dead, and that's the end of a very long run. This is the other place where you want to use the chainsaw. So, I wanted to mention this before we get out of the section here. So when you first come into the section, it seems like the idea is to grab that chainsaw and then to stand in the middle and try to chainsaw people. But it turns out with that speed and that amount of enemies, the chainsaw is most of the time in the later stages, starting in stage 3, do not use the chainsaw. But what's fun is that there comes that part where you spawn the mid-boss guy, the guy in fully bulletproof armor, the walking tank, we can call him. You can actually chainsaw the wanted tank. It'll take your entire chainsaw, but you can do it, and that's way better than trying to fight him. So the name of the gunplay, like a lot of these types of games, Gears of War and so forth, is burst firing. So the way it works is if you fire in little bursts, it maintains your accuracy better. Unless you got a lot of bullets to spare or you're like near the end of the stage, going for body shots on enemies isn't really all that good, other than to stun them and then shoot them in the head. So if you do a body shot on them, it's just to get the stun and then you flip up and shoot them in the head because that's how you get the kills. Otherwise you can waste a ton of bullets and energy trying to kill people manually with your sword, and it turns out you could just shoot them and that would work very effectively as well. Okay, so here's some fun stuff with the incendiary grenade. So me throwing the incendiary grenade right there was intentional. I wasn't aiming it to try to hit the guy. What I was doing is by throwing the incendiary grenade right in that very narrow door frame, it creates a wall of fire, literally, so that he can't get backup guy, because there's another sword guy. So the backup sword guy can't get in, and other machine gun guys can't get in. It's just you and him, mano y mano, cage match style. And that is one really cool thing about the incendiary grenades is you can use them very tactically to set up like parameters and to set up certain zones. One thing you can't do that I was really excited to try is on some of the boss fights, actually most of the boss fights, well, half of them, I guess, the humanoid boss fight, except the final one, you can sort of damage them and influence them using the incendiary grenades. And so one time I tried to do what I thought was a very clever technique where I threw an incendiary grenade in front of a boss. I think it's this boss. No, it's stage 4 boss. In front of stage boss. And then I threw an incendiary grenade behind him. And what I was hoping would happen is that he would ping pong back and forth between the two flames and get insta-killed that way. Turns out that's not what happens. Instead, he'll just get the iframes and roll out of the whole thing. So I'm wondering if the developers foresaw that coming or foresaw like certain shenanigans with the grenades. So you can't do that. But what you can do that's really effective is you can throw one down and then it burns them. And then you can stand over where they're burned and you can keep hitting that, comboing them in and out of the burns. So you can hit them, they fall back, they fall into the burn. That hurts them, they come out, and you can do it once again. You can just bounce them on and off the burn sections. It's a very powerful option. You just don't want to get too parry happy. And what I mean by that is a lot of the game's combat is not like just sitting and waiting for parries, guarding and just waiting for parries, because it turns out that a lot of the enemies have pretty sick mix-ups. And so, for example, this guy here, I remember I decided to do just that. I was sick of him killing me in the Majin Buu arc, What am I even talking about? Killing me in the Margin Boo arc. God, it's late. God, it's late. I'm starting to trip. Killing me in the Margin Boo arc. What the fuck am I talking about? Killing me in the later stage. So I decided what I was gonna do was I was going to go full game journalist mode and just hold guard and parry, but it turns out he has a grab mix-up and it's hella fast. So if you just sit there and also remember, there's some cooldown off the guard. You can't just instantly fire out of guard. You have to drop it, right? So I thought I'd be clever and I'd run up and just guard, and he just command grabs me, and he'll one-shot you with that command grab too. So I think if you're full health, you literally get one sliver to recover. But you can't do that. So what you have to do is you have to play this game where you slice him and then make sure you guard cancel every slice so that you're prepared for the parry in his response. But if you're doing these kind of what I call like hip check slashes or whatever, these sort of slashes, interrupt slashes. If you're doing these interrupt slashes on him, he won't have time to be able to do his bullshit command grab without you interrupting it. So it's actually a game of more like interruptions and kind of trading back and forth and then parrying when it counts. So this idea that it's like Sifu and you just run up and just wait for the parry, that's definitely not the case. Okay, so here's a very important warning I need to tell you about this boss. The very important warning is that the boss has a deceptive command grab, which is... Okay, so I got shot there because I forgot that move existed. But what will happen is, in this phase 1, you're fishing. When she's invisible, you're fishing for the gun cancel, bright orange attack, right? And you can just kind of fish for that. And when you hear the, you hit your gunshot and stun her, and you're good. You got her out of her bullshit running around invisible stage. Though you actually can hit her when she's invisible, by the way. If you watch the feet marks in the water, you can actually see where she is. You just have to have the eyes of an eagle, and you can actually swing on her while she's invisible. But anyway, what I was getting at, though, is she has this attack where in phase 2, you hear the bloop, 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 and you think, oh, perfect, I'll gun cancel it. But it turns out it's like this crazy up in the air demon throw type of thing that will one-shot you. And that's terrifying. And so what you need to do is you need to run around, and when she's in phase 2, the first blah, 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 don't react to it. Just keep running away from her for the first blah, 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 blah. And then when you hear it, she'll do 2 in a row. And then the second one is when you fire. That's when she lands on the ground. Also, a fun tip on her that I want to bring up before I talk about this next stage here is that if you're gunning her, she won't go invisible. So what you can do is you, in the second phase or even the first phase, depending on what you feel like doing, you actually can spend a shitload of time just running away from her and headshotting her. And then when she gets close, you just roll away. I feel like that maybe was a little bit too broken because you can get a ton of damage doing that. And then you mix that in with the incendiary grenade like I did at the end, and you can just go to town on her. This is a funny little... I don't know if it's a glitch, but basically what happens is sometimes... It's not a glitch. I think it's like a side effect, because basically what happens is the enemies are programmed to roll out of the fire within a certain proximity. But if you trap them in a certain way, they'll do these sort of roll cycles where in order to not get burned by the flames, but they're not currently getting burned, they'll just roll and roll and roll and roll. And they're fully invulnerable while they're doing this. And you can't even shoot them or anything. It's pretty crazy. Another thing to point about the game's mechanics is the way the guard works. So the guard is not like a Super Smash Brothers Melee shield type of situation where you're fully covered front and back. No. You only cover your front. And at first that seems kind of like, who cares? That's not a big deal. That's actually a massively big deal. It's super important. And one of the techniques you need to learn in the game, funnily enough, is when you're roll canceling, you need to learn to quick turn after you roll. Because a lot of the time when you're fighting like ninjas or sword guys, you have to roll away from them. But if you don't turn around soon enough, if you roll and then guard, but you're guarding backwards, and they start a combo on you, you're dead. You just get stun locked and you just get comboed and die. So guarding backwards in this game is terrifying. And there's certain moments during the sword guys, I'll point them out, when the sword guys do their rolling sword swing, where if you don't face them when they do that and you're trying to roll away yourself, you'll get one-shotted and killed. So this section here is one of my least favorite sections of the level, just because it feels a little bit clunky in terms of the stage design. So you go from this really cool section of the stage where you go down the ramp, you're fighting ninja guys, you're fighting shotgun guys, you're fighting GAC units. It's all flowing together real nicely. And then when you get to the bottom of the ramp, you kind of have this little shooting range section, which is fun. And do not get the chainsaw in that section, by the way. It's super tempting to grab the chainsaw, but the scary part is like you can just get sniped off while holding the chainsaw, or you can, like I said before, you can get 3 people running and swinging on you, so that even if you hit one and get the invulnerability from one, the others usually connect beforehand, and so you can just die swinging on people. So I was talking before about the different types of tech with the grenades, where it's not just that the frag grenade is always better or the incendiary grenade is always better. You kind of have to choose based on the situation. So with the shield bros, usually the incendiary grenades are better because the frag grenades will bounce off their shields often. You can get some pretty silly situations where you throw the grenade, it bounces off the shield, they shoot you, it stuns you for a second, and then the grenade blows up and kills you. I swear I've had stuff like that happen before. But there are other sections where the fact that the frag grenades can bounce is actually really useful, and you can throw them in interesting ways around corners and stuff that you wouldn't be able to do if they were not able to bounce around. This section's here. Okay, here we're going to use a rare grenade bounce here. So we're going to bounce it off that back wall. It's going to come down. It's going to land next to that guy's feet, and he's going to quit his cushy job. Boom. So this section here I've always been sort of troubled by. Not because I don't think it's fun, but because, like I said before, I wish the enemy visibility was just a little bit more clear. Because especially when you get into these office spaces like here, like those gacked armor, it blends in so well to the crap. Like even I, with the contrast up, with the color saturation up, still have trouble seeing them. So I really wish that the Wanted Dead devs added like those little triangle things over their heads, just like a Call of Duty. That way you can tell where the enemies are a little bit easier, and you're not accidentally shooting on your teammates, or you're not accidentally thinking an enemy is your teammate when he's not, and you're walking by and getting an attack. So this section, this last checkpoint here, this is the checkpoint from hell. That's the name of it, the gauntlet. This is the checkpoint that I'm sure IGN was referring to, and they're like, these checkpoints are goddamn ridiculous. And it is quite a gauntlet, but I think it's really fun section in the end. I don't know if I talked about this before, but there's basically 3 ways to deal with the shield guys. 1, grenades, that'll take down their shields. 2 is you can run up and parry, so you can't actually attack them. You can even do like a running dash attack, and it still won't do jack diddles. They'll just block it. But what you can do is you can run up and you can kind of swing at their shield, but then guard cancel the end of the swing, and then prepare for the counterattack, and then prepare for the Royal Rumble without the shield and get the parry. But a third option that I actually use in this run quite a bit is you just shoot them in the feet. It kind of wastes bullets, but in stage 4, bullets are much more plentiful than in the other stages. And so you can kind of go, there's quite a few in stage 5 as well, but you can go kind of crazy with the bullet usage in stage 4. And so you'll see from time to time, I'm just shooting at the feet of the shield guys. What I really like about the game, though, is that it didn't just give you one option. It didn't do the color coding bullshit of, oh, it's a red shield, so use the blue laser. If you shoot the blue laser at the red shield, it breaks it. Or, you know, that's one thing. Sometimes now they just color match it. They don't even do like opposite polarity stuff. So now it's like, it's the red shield, so use the red laser on the red shield, and that breaks the red shield. And if it's a blue shield, use the blue laser. And isn't that so clever? I hate that style of design. It's becoming more and more frequent. Like I said, IGN gave Hogwarts Legacy a 9 out of 10. And from what I understand, that is literally just from what I did watching, because I'm not buying that game full price, but I kind of watched a lot of gameplay footage of it combat-wise, and it seemed like the combat system was just like that. It's like, match blue to blue, match red to red. You're so smart. Great job, action gamer. Whereas I think the Wanted Dead style of the shield guys is a much better, more elegant style of design, which is, okay, you got a shield guy, and you got 3 different ways to get that shield off him. You can parry it away, you can blow him up with a grenade. I'm sure there's other ways, but these are the 3 that come to mind. I'm gonna run out of bullets here. But it's shooting. At first I thought this boss fight was like insanely difficult on Japanese hard mode, just because, you know, he does so much damage, and his combos are these long flowing combos, and if you turn around at any point, he'll kill you. So if he hits you while your back is turned, you're dead. And your back is like, oh, see, I rolled away. If I tried to have parried that, which that's your first reaction of, oh, try to parry. But remember, your back is turned, so you're not going to parry shit, because your parry hitbox is in front of you, not behind you. So that's why I think that's another real learning curve to the game people struggle with, is when they're getting railed on. In most action games, you know, you get sort of recovery frames that kind of do it for you or whatever. In this game, you don't really get that. You have to actually manually block, manually parry, or manually roll out. And for a lot of the time for players, you're getting caught when you're rolling, and your back is turned. So like parry is the worst option, or even holding block's the worst option, because it's literally going to do nothing. So I tried to do something really cheeky, and the game didn't allow it, which is, so I threw down 1 incendiary grenade to stop him from being able to cross, and then I threw another one behind him. And I wanted you to do this sort of like sandwich back and forth style thing, where he'd get damaged in one incendiary flame, and then he'd fall backwards to escape it, but then it land in the other. That was my strategy, but it didn't really work like that. He just kind of rolls over it just like that. See, he just rolls out of it because he's a smart boy. But a really good strategy on him is what I'm doing here, where you lay down a sort of field of flame. I'm going to do it again. Oh no, I'm out of incendiary grenades. But you lay down a field of flame, and he can't really cross it, and then you can just lay waste to him with your machine gun. Oh, we're getting close. Roll! Last thing I need is to get a death combo when he's a sliver away. So there's basically 3 main metas of the game, I would say. Your grenade tech, your gun tech, and your melee tech, of course. Now, when you first start playing, it seems like the grenades are just this sort of superfluous, casual, kind of thrown in idea. Like, okay, you got your guns, you got your melee, then you got your cute little grenades. But as I have gone through and played the game and routed it, I found out that your grenade routing is like Metal Slug. It reminds me a shitload of Metal Slug. Like, your grenade routing is super important, and it can really change the flow of the stages and the flow of your fights. And you can use the grenades on almost every enemy in one way or another in interesting ways. But I want to jump to this section to point out the booby traps, which is up top here. You're going to get absolutely owned the first time you play the game, because you're going to be walking through the street and killing people in this little market alleyway and thinking, oh, I'm doing so good. But actually, you're going to get insta-killed, because there's 2 guys up top here with grenade launchers, and they will insta-kill you with them the second you're in range. So you have to shoot them before they shoot you, and you kind of have to know they're there before, because the game doesn't have a bunch of usually hidden enemies. But this is an example of one. So you have to know where they are beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to be just walking down the street and taking a grenade shot to the head. Oh, beautiful. So let's see how I deal with Brown Swordsman. Looks like I'm just headshotting him. That worked. Just shoot him in the head a lot. That's always a good strategy with these guys. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I did the pistol cancel. Nice. The dash kick is really useful, because not only can it knock down enemies, which is really useful for crowd control, not just damaging them, but also just crowd controlling them, pacifying them temporarily. Not only that, but you can actually guard cancel and then do it instantly. And so in certain fights, like the ninjas, who are the scariest enemies of the game, because they can one-shot you, like against the ninjas, or against the sword, a lot of the sword people, if you're doing a block string on them, and they're just blocking the crap out of it, you can guard cancel and then do an instant dash attack knee and just knock them on their ass. The double ninja is nasty, by the way, but the trick for the double ninja, when you get to there, so there's a section in stage 5 before the loading screen where you fight double ninjas to go to the final checkpoint. And the thing about the double ninjas is if you want to save up your incendiary grenades, because you can throw a incendiary grenade down, that'll distract him, and then your teammates usually distract him, and then you can focus on the other ninja. Remember to always keep your space so they doesn't do that crazy slash kill on you. And then from there, that makes the fight a lot. And then also remember 1, 2, 3, cancel in the machine gun and just unload the entire machine gun into his head. Do that a few times, do a super or whatever, you can take him down, and then he'll be then the second ninja will be easier to pick off, and you just isolate him again with incendiary grenades and just unload on him. And so you're in the hall, you pick up the flying pig, and then you can just grenade the shit out of this room. Then you go back, switch back for the hellhound. You really want to get the hellhound. Okay, this is called the Hall of Death. This is one of the trickiest sections of the game. Now I want to give advice here. So you come up, you spawn the guy, then you run back down, get out your machine gun. He's going to be coming super fast. Fire, 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 fire. Try to get a stun on him. And then you just got to play a really fun game of chicken with the guy where you can't really dodge all that well. You can kind of dodge backwards, but like I said, you got to be careful because they might run you down and catch you as you're rolling and recovering from the roll. Yeah, so a good old-fashioned counter. And then you go up, you spawn again, and then you throw a grenade in this room here that should take out one of the gacked guys. And then here comes the second brown guy. You can charge the sword attack. This is where I remember I said way back that the sword attack charge comes in handy. The Hall of Death is definitely the section where that's the most common because for one, like that section always spawns 2 brown sword guys. And you can kind of anticipate when they're going to show up. And then by the time they show up, you can just unleash your charge attack and kill them for the most part. So that's really cool. And then that section here, you want to throw a grenade up the stairs. Now there's a second gacked guy, but don't get too hung up on him because your death is coming. The death of all deaths, the fucking ninja. Oh, this is the second to last checkpoint, sorry. The ninja, so I got him with the incendiary. And then I realized, like, I have to be careful with the incendiary because I'm going to burn myself with it like I did right there. Yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword. So, got my last of my health refills, and here we go. Slash, 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 slash. I think I did a really good job. Oh, unload the machine gun on him. Block, block. Yep. Cancel. Then 1, 2, 3. Unload machine gun. Nope, I didn't. I wonder why. Nice counter there. Everything's going super well. Hit him with the incendiary grenade. This time less close to where I work. And you'll be surprised how quickly and effectively you can take these guys out. Also, you can use the super once you understand how to fight them. And what's fun about these fights, though, is that even though you're doing parrying, that's a big part of it. If you want it to be, you can also actually do it without parrying, but it takes forever. It's still like the timing and like the things the enemy will do is like a little bit unpredictable. You never, like, he might just swing on you, he might bull rush you, he might command grab you. You don't quite know what he's gonna do, which makes it exciting. Okay, so now we're gonna jump forward to the final boss to close out this evening. Because the double tank, there's really nothing to say about the double tank. It's super easy. Just kind of tedious. You're running around picking up items, but it's not really all that hard. I would say the double tank's actually easier than the single tank, which is funny. Because the single tank has those crazy grenade guys, and the damn thing will just drive over you at times. So here we go, the final boss fight. I want to give some tips here. So this is, I used to think this was all about the parry and it was just a parry fest. It actually, I mean, parry is important, but it's actually not the optimal strategy at all. So what you do, 1, 2, and then roll away. It's always 1, 2, roll away, 1. Well, when he goes into combo mode, he kind of does some tricky stuff. Like he'll guard cancel his own attacks a bit, where he'll do a swing and then guard cancel, then go into his combo, and that can really throw you up if you're trying to guard or if you're trying to parry everything, because the timings will be mixed up. But I've established this great rhythm, which is 1, 2, 3. Back away. I think I even might go down to 1, 1, 1, 1 at the very end. but it's like 1, 2, 3, and then he's going to counterattack with a big swing. If you roll away, you can just do this over and over and over and get away with it. The 1, 1, 1, 1. Oh yeah, so when he starts this combo, you block parry 1, parry 2, and then roll away, and then prepared for the gunshot or not. Sometimes he'll do it, sometimes he'll do this kind of flurry. But if you try to just parry everything like that, there's the flurry. If you try to just parry that flurry, I've never been able to do it. Maybe it's possible, but you often get just absolutely lit up by that thing. And the crazy thing about this final boss fight that makes it scary is it really isn't all that much more difficult than the other boss fights, but just the amount of volatility. He can just one-shot you at any point. I remember I even had him down to literally one swing away from death, and then he did his command grab and killed me. And no matter how, even if you have full health, if he command grabs you, it's over. So that's why I'm so skittish. You'll see, like, the second he starts to move, I'm like rolling away. Because you go, okay, oh, he's healing 1, 2, 3. You see how the guard cancels? And then when he gets the block, you just roll away and then come back and repeat. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. The scary part is when you kind of get into neutral. And what I found is when you can start to identify when he's going from a new attack to his pre-standard combo, you just parry that new attack, parry 1, 2 of the standard combo, roll away, attack, guard cancel, attack, guard cancel, attack, guard cancel, blocks, roll away, see, attack, guard cancel, attack, guard cancel. You just follow that form, roll away. It works every time. As long as he doesn't get a little, sometimes he can get a little bit crazy and start to move around, but dear God, that's effective. And so you're actually only parrying 2 attacks and then you're rolling away rather than trying to parry all of them and all that. So yeah, do I recommend Wanted Dead? Absolutely. I think the Japanese hard mode is a lot of fun. I would love to see more though, because when you beat the Japanese hard mode, it kind of leaves you wanting like, hey, could I get an unlock, or could I get like some different, like a survival mode? I'm not saying they need to like make a new campaign or anything, or DLC, an entire campaign in there or anything, but like I think some more modes would be really fun, and also like some unlocks, like new skins and stuff like that, because I think that part of the game feels a little bit bare bones. Is, you know, even after you beat Japanese hard mode, I feel like you should have unlocked something. I think you unlocked some part skins or something, but like a real outfit change or something. But overall, a very solid package and a fantastic time. So adios, everyone.
So thank you to the $5 patrons, 100, accepting Panda, Alexander Pfeiffer, Dingo, Another Joe, Anthony A, Aaron Solis, Arrow Viper, Bo, Ben, Vito Dames, Borgie22, Brian Shiver, Chase Palumbo, Chato Maltese, Chris Yuzefovich, Chronic Burnout 3, Climby Coyote, Coast, Color Boy, Cooksan666, Cook Some Soup, Corey Mark, Des Audio, Danchi, Darren Griffin, Datrot, Delta Tango 6, Disco Stas Leia, DJ420 Praise It, Eric H, Fantaside, FCK, Francisco, Full Set, Retro Schmupper, Jake Ryan, JLab, JB RPG, John Kelly, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, Khalil Reedy, Contain, K-Horse, Larridge, Malaise, Matt O'Leary, The Goddamn Milkman, Maz, Megadeth 859, Minung, Mechalin, Michael Stum, Mitchell Y, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Psycho Blizzard, Rattlecat, Raul, Real Skeen, Riff Mason, Rolf015, Sarah, Scanline City, Seesaw STG, Shmup Junkie, Sarah Pong, Steve Fiction, Street Magic, Superfunk, Takero Mucho, The Boot Rex, The Dirty Screech, The N1, The Old Bensta, TRM, Sugumo, Tuwayu, Twilight EX, Unikoi Roots, Vic Viper, Wabby Legs, X20 Spec, Boghog, and Utakaya. Thanks for watching.